Part 1. Fill up before dark. Part 2. Get back in your vehicle. Part 3. Part 3 is about the ones who didn't make it back in time.
Welcome back to Shattered Gauge. No actors, no fluff. Just real people, real gas stations, and the moment you realize there's no way out but through. 3 stories, 3 survivors. Lock the doors.
I want to tell you something about the Delta before I tell you what happened there. The Mississippi Delta at night is not like other darks. It's not the dark of a city with the lights off. It's something older than that. A dark that has been there since before the roads, before the gas stations, before anyone thought to put a BP sign out on Highway 61 and call it safety. The fields run flat to the horizon, and the sky comes down to meet them. And somewhere in that meeting point, the normal rules start to feel negotiable. I'm a social worker, 12 years. I've done crisis interventions in houses where I was the only person not holding something sharp. I've talked people down from ledges, literal and figurative. I have a professional relationship with danger that most people will never develop. And I say that not to brag, but to explain why what happened matters. Because I almost missed it. It was November 2022. 9 at night. I was coming back north on US 61 after a long day in Clarksdale. Home visits, paperwork, the kind of emotional excavation that leaves you hollow by evening. I had 1 bar of signal and a quarter tank of gas, and nothing in my stomach since a granola bar at noon. The BP station materialized out of the dark the way things do down there. Suddenly, completely, like it had always been there, and you just hadn't been permitted to see it until now. Medium-sized, decent lighting, 3 other cars in the lot. The ordinary miracle of fluorescent light in the middle of nowhere. I pulled up, started my transaction, watched a woman walk past me into the store, watched a man finish pumping and leave. Watched a teenager sit on the hood of a Camry looking at his phone. Everything normal, everything fine. I went inside to use the bathroom. It was at the back of the store, past the coolers, down a short hallway, single occupancy, the kind with a sliding bolt lock on the inside. I went in, used the bathroom, ran the water. Then I looked up. There was a mirror above the sink. Standard, cheap, the silver starting to go dark at the edges, the way old mirrors do. I was washing my hands, and I glanced up at my reflection. And I don't know how to explain this without sounding like I lost my mind. My reflection looked at me, a half second too late. Not wrong enough to be sure, just wrong enough to notice. I stood there with the water running and told myself it was the light. Fluorescent flicker, exhaustion, 12 hours of other people's pain sitting behind my eyes. Then the footsteps came. Not passing footsteps, stopping footsteps, right outside the door. And then, breathing. Slow and deliberate. The kind of breathing that takes effort to maintain. The kind you do when you need your hands to be steady. The handle moved. Not a casual rattle. A slow, controlled rotation. Feeling the bolt, testing the resistance. Then holding. Holding the handle fully turned. Applying just enough pressure to let me know it was intentional. He didn't knock, didn't ask if it was occupied, just held. I am trained to assess under pressure. I assessed. Phone in my purse on the hook behind me. 1 bar of signal, 1 exit, 1 bolt between me and whatever was breathing on the other side of that door. I grabbed my phone and texted my cousin Tamara. BP on 61, south of Memphis. Bathroom. Someone's at the door, not leaving. She called in 8 seconds. I answered without speaking, just held the phone to my ear and listened to her voice. Let it anchor me while she called the store. 40 seconds later, I heard the cashier's voice in the hallway. 19 years old, I learned later. He said, hey man, you need to step back." Shuffling, movement, silence. I counted to 30 and opened the door. The hallway was empty except for the cashier at the far end. He was pale, the way people get when something has genuinely frightened them. Not scared, frightened, the older word. He said the man had been standing with his back to him, completely still. Hadn't turned around when spoken to, just walked out the side door without a word. I never saw his face, the cashier said. He walked me to my car and watched me leave. I drove north on 61 without stopping, and it wasn't until I was back in Memphis, sitting in my lit driveway, that I thought about the mirror again. The thing about the bolt lock. It had been engaged when I got there. I remember sliding it. I remember the sound it made. But I also remember, when I turned to grab my phone from my purse, that the bolt had moved. Not open, just moved. To a position I hadn't left it in, like someone had touched it from the other side. I've never told that part to my supervisor. I've never told it to Tamara. Some things you hold on to because saying them out loud makes them more real, and you are not ready for them to be more real. I have 2 rules now. Bolt goes on first, before anything else the second the door closes. And I text my location every time I stop alone at night. Tamara picked up in 2 rings. Remember that. It matters more than you think. Who picks up and how fast.
I want to start with a number. 11 hours and 47 minutes. That's how long I'd been driving when I pulled off I-40 into the Texas Panhandle and made the worst good decision of my life. I was moving to Albuquerque. Whole life in a U-Haul, new job, 28 years old and running on the particular kind of optimism that only works when you haven't slept enough to think clearly. The Panhandle had been working on me for 2 hours, that flat, enormous landscape that makes you feel small in a way mountains don't, because mountains are grand and the Panhandle is just indifferent. The sky doesn't care about you out there. The wind doesn't care. The mile markers tick by like a countdown to something you can't name. I needed gas, needed food, needed to splash water on my face and remember I was a person. The station had 2 pumps and a hand-painted sign that said, "Cold drinks." I should have kept driving. The nearest pilot was probably 30 miles east, and I was low enough that 30 miles felt like a gamble. I pulled in, started the pump, went inside. Small place, 2 aisles, a drink cooler along the back wall, a bathroom door in the far corner. You could see all of it from the entrance. And yet, no one at the counter. I waited, grabbed a Gatorade, a Slim Jim, some Doritos, road food, the kind your body accepts without argument when you've been driving for 12 hours, waited at the counter. Nothing. I called out, "Hello?" From the back. "Be right with you." Male voice, normal enough. I waited another minute, called again. "Coming!" Still nothing. And this is where I made the mistake, the one that exhaustion made on my behalf. I'm a certified wilderness first responder. When someone doesn't answer, my instinct is to check. It's reflex. It's training. It has served me well. It almost didn't serve me at all that afternoon. I pushed open the employees-only door behind the counter. Back room, size of a walk-in closet, metal shelving, mini fridge, folding chair with a jacket on it. And on top of the mini fridge, a phone, propped against the wall, screen lit, recording. Not playing anything, recording. The little red dot in the corner, steady and certain. I stood there for what felt like a long time, but was probably 2 seconds. In those 2 seconds, I noticed 3 things. The phone had been positioned to capture the whole room, including the door I'd just come through. The jacket on the chair was still warm when I'd brushed past it. And the mini fridge was humming, but there was a second sound underneath the hum. Something that stopped the moment I registered it. I backed out, fast, through the store, out the door, back to my truck. The pump had clicked off. I replaced the nozzle, got in, locked the doors. Then I looked at the store window. He was standing in it, far enough back from the glass that the glare half hid him. A large man, much larger than the slight frame I'd imagined from that voice, standing completely still in the dim interior, watching me. He hadn't come out when I entered. He'd been there the whole time in that small store with 2 short aisles and nowhere to hide. And I had walked right past him. I thought about that for a long time afterward. I thought about the dimensions of the room, the sight lines from the entrance. I couldn't figure out where he'd been. I still can't, if I'm honest. I've redrawn that floor plan in my head 100 times, and there is no position in that store where a man his size could have been invisible to someone standing at the door. I drove to Amarillo, stopped at a pilot with 40 other humans and 17 cameras and a subway, and I sat in a plastic chair and ate and tried to make my hands stop shaking. The phone was recording. That's the part I couldn't let go. There are reasons someone might set up a recording in a back room. Most of them have explanations. But the ones that don't, the ones where the explanation requires you to think about what was supposed to happen next in that room, those are the ones that follow you. I filed a report with the Potter County Sheriff's Office. They acknowledged it. Nothing more. I made it to Albuquerque. New job, new apartment, new life. But sometimes, when I'm in a small, unfamiliar space, I check the corners before I do anything else. I check for little red dots. I haven't stopped doing that. I don't think I ever will.
My name is Natalie. I'm a high school chemistry teacher. I drive a sensible crossover with a roadside kit in the trunk. Jumper cables, reflective vest, 3 granola bars, first aid kit. My husband packed it. He is thorough in the way that people are thorough when they love someone and understand the world is not always safe. I want to tell you about 17 minutes, about what it actually feels like to live inside them. March 2023, spring break. I was driving US 160 from Denver down to Durango to pick up my daughter from a 2-week wilderness program. One of my favorite drives in the state, the San Luis Valley, Wolf Creek Pass, the kind of mountain scenery that makes you feel small in a way that's good rather than frightening. I left late because mornings are chaos, and by the time I hit the mountains, it was past noon. I let my tank get low. This is the part where I always blame myself, though I've learned to stop. Around 4:30, I pulled into a small station near South Fork. Old building, 2 pumps, wooden sign with a hand-painted eagle on it. A black lab sleeping on a rag rug by the entrance. I noticed the dog because he didn't move when I walked in. Dogs usually acknowledge you. This one just lay there with his eyes open, watching the parking lot with an expression I can only describe as waiting, like he already knew something I didn't. Inside, a woman in her 60s behind the counter, friendly, asked where I was headed. I bought a coffee and a candy bar. We talked about the pass, about my daughter's program, about how the winter had been. Normal. Warm. Good. I went back out to my car. He was parked at the other pump. White pickup, eastern Colorado plates. A long way from these mountains. He was leaning against his driver's door with his arms crossed, watching me with the particular quality of attention that isn't curiosity. Curiosity looks up and looks away. This didn't look away. I got in my car, started the engine. The engine died. Not a sputter, not a warning, just gone. Dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree and went dark. I tried again. Nothing. The crossover that had never once given me trouble in 4 years of mountain driving simply stopped being a car. He was already walking toward me. I locked the doors before I finished the thought. He came to my window and knocked, made a gesture. "Your car, I can help." He was smiling, patient, the kind of smile that has practice behind it. I shook my head, called my husband, meetings, called my sister, no answer, called AAA, got through, gave my location, said there was a man trying to get me to open my door. The operator was good, calm, said to stay on the line, don't open the door for anyone but the confirmed AAA driver. The man knocked again. I held up my phone. He stepped back. And then he leaned on my car, just settled his weight against the passenger door like he had nowhere better to be and was happy to wait until I did. That's when I understood. This wasn't opportunism. This wasn't someone who'd seen a woman with car trouble and decided in the moment. The patience was too practiced. The smile was too ready. He had been at that pump before I pulled in, and when my car died, he had not looked surprised. I told the operator. She escalated, contacted the Mineral County Sheriff. At minute 12, the woman from the store came outside. She saw him against my car, and she walked out into the parking lot and she said, loud, no nonsense, with the particular authority of someone who has lived in the same mountains for 60 years, "You need to move on." They exchanged words I couldn't hear. He gestured at my car. She didn't move. At minute 15, she went back inside, and I felt my stomach drop. And then she came back out, with the store phone held up, showing him she was calling. He walked to his truck. He didn't hurry. He got in and drove west on 160, and I watched his taillights until they were gone. And I kept watching the spot where they disappeared for a long time after that. At minute 17, the deputy arrived. The AAA truck came 4 minutes later. Loose battery cable, 10-minute fix. Back on the road by 6. I made it to Durango, hugged my daughter until she said, "Mom, ow." Here's what I've thought about since. On the nights when the mind goes back there. My car has never failed before or since. Not in snowstorms, not on switchbacks, not in the 4 years before that day or the 2 years after. Just that once. Just those 17 minutes. I went back the following week with a pie from a Durango bakery. The woman waved it off. She said, "I've lived in these mountains 60 years. I know what a man leaning on a woman's car looks like." I asked if it happened often on that road. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Often enough that I know when to come outside." The black lab was still on his rug. I scratched him behind the ear. He wagged his tail once without opening his eyes. I keep thinking about the way he'd been watching the parking lot when I arrived, before the man at the pump, before any of it, waiting, like he already knew. Maybe he did.
Keisha, Ryan, Natalie, Memphis to the Colorado mountains. A locked door, a recording phone, and pure terror. 9 stories later, one thing saved them all. Connection. Your phone, your voice, that one person you text your location to. They are not small things. They are the thing. Right now, pick one person. Tell them, "I'm stopping alone at night, just so you know." 1 text, 2 rings. If you're Shattered Gauge for life, drop a Part 4 and subscribe. Share this with someone who drives alone. Stay safe. Fill up before dark. Lock your doors and pick up the phone.